Hey guys, Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC. In this session, we're going to dig deeper into and expand on the Wikipedia article for the Browning High Power. We are down to the section that the article calls Design. There's 3 paragraphs currently that in the version we're looking at, and we're starting with the 3rd paragraph in that section. It starts out, the high power, like many other Browning design, operates on the short recoil principle where the barrel and slide initially recoil together until the barrel is unlocked from the slide by a cam arrangement. Unlike Browning's earlier Colt M1911 pistol, the barrel is not moved vertically by a toggling link, but instead by a hardened bar which crosses the frame under the barrel and contacts a slot under the chamber at the rearmost part of the barrel. We're going to come back to this in a second. I'm going to get through the writing here. The barrel and slide recoil together for a short distance, but as the slot engages the bar, the chamber and the rear of the barrel are drawn downward and stopped. The downward movement of the barrel disengages it from the slide, which continues rearward, extracting the spent case from the chamber and ejecting it while also recocking the hammer. After the slide reaches the limit of its travel, the recoil spring brings it forward again, stripping a new round from the magazine and pushing it into the chamber. This also pushes the chamber and barrel forward. The cam slot and bar move the chamber upward, and locking lugs in the barrel re-engage those in the slide. Whew. That is a mouthful. Here's what they're talking about, because it's rather easy to read that and get lost and go, what did that say? One of the things you've noticed if you have a high power pistol is you've noticed that when the slide recoils rearward, and it's about 4 millimeters, the barrel actually tilts or cams. It appears to just kind of drop down. It doesn't actually drop. But this is part of what they're talking about, how the slide releases the barrel at this point, and then the slide continues rearward, but the barrel stays put. What they're talking about is this. You have here a frame lug, and I sometimes call it a crossbar. When the slide is on the pistol, the barrel is above that frame bar, approximately here. And then when the slide comes rearward, the rearward movement of the slide causes this angle, and this is called the barrel cam lug. It causes that to engage with the crossbar or the frame lug, and it causes that is what literally causes the barrel to cam itself down and release from the slide. When the slide is all the way forward, these locking lugs are up in the frame recess or in the slide recesses, and the barrel is locked in the slide. But when the slide comes rearward, the crossbar and the barrel cam lug engage, and that actually directs the barrel into that position. So that's what the main part of everything that they were talking about that was just read is all about. The next section, design flaws. The pistol has a tendency to bite the web of the shooter's hand between the thumb and forefinger. That would be this part of your hand right here. This bite is caused by pressure from the hammer spur, or alternatively by pinching between the hammer shank and grip tang. This problem can be fixed by altering or replacing the hammer, or by learning to hold the pistol to avoid injury. While a common complaint with the commercial models with spur hammers similar to that of the Colt Model 1911 automatic, it is seldom a problem with the military models, which have a smaller, rounded burr hammer, more like that of the Colt Commander compact version of the 1911. Okay, we're going to stop right there. This issue of hammer bite, I want to show you here. By the way, all of these, none of these handguns have had any ammunition in them, and all have been triple checked. What they're talking about is some guys can manage to hold the high power very, very high and have this meaty part of the hand kind of bunch up and sort of on top of or right behind the beaver tail of the high power. And that's what they're talking about. That is rarely, I've never known it to happen actually with the SFS system. That's a system we'll be talking about a lot more later, but all of these high powers in the 1911 have that system on it. One of the things that the SFS system did was it virtually solves hammer bite. With the FN high power, the one I'm putting back together here real quick, I have to tell you, even with the traditional operating system, I never had an instance of hammer bite, but my hand fits really nicely, and with any hammer, I'm not going to get bit from that position. But my hands are kind of average size hands. A guy with more meat on the hands, he very well, and I've heard it, a lot of guys say they had a hammer bite, and they just felt like they were kind of holding the pistol in kind of normal position. Here's one thing I want to show you real quickly. If you on this page, on this Wikipedia page, just below this section, the next section says military service. Take a look at that. It says English-made high-power pistol, Mark I Browning high power. Okay, take a look at this area. And the area that I'm talking about is the area right here, particularly kind of the length of the beaver tail, the depth of this area in the frame on that Inglis. Now, if you would, scroll back up the page and take a look at just in that section there, the design section, there's an FN Browning high power. All the way at the top of the page is another one. But compare that area, this area right here, with the Inglis, and all of a sudden you start to see it is a different handgun. That frame area has been modified. It's blueprinted differently. Another thing that you will, here's another as an example. These one-piece wraparound finger-grooved RDIH grips. This is on an FN Mark II high power. These are a drop-on fit on an Inglis or Ishapur from India. These are not a drop-on fit. We have to remove material on the inside of the grip with a Dremel in order to get them to wrap and for the grip screw holes to line up, because again, there's dimensional differences that are going on with the grip frame. You'll notice some differences in the slide too. The sight system was different on the Inglis pistols. And there was another interesting nuance about the Inglis pistols. When Dieudonné Save blueprinted the Inglis pistol, an interesting thing that he did, and actually there's a lot of differences all over the pistol, but one of the things that he did is you cannot take an FN or Browning or anybody else's slide stop and just interchange it into an Inglis. And you can't take anybody else's recoil spring guide rods and interchange that part alone in and out of an Inglis. On the Inglis, this detent ball in the recoil spring guide rod is offset in a different position, and the engagement dimple, if you will, on the slide stop where it goes through the frame and goes through the recoil spring guide rod, it is offset in a different location slightly. So these parts are an example of parts that are not interchangeable, and this is a nuance of the Canadian Inglis. You hear us talking about, or you'll hear in here in this article, Rifle Factory Ishapur in India. That's who bought the Inglis equipment when the Inglis company in Canada went out of business back in the 70s. Rifle Factory Ishapur in India bought the equipment, and all it took to make high powers in 2000 18 or 19, we were told that Rifle Factory Ishapore was still making around 18,000 high powers a year for their own domestic use. These are fantastic high powers, and they're still made of the same equipment that was used in Canada to make the Inglis. It's called the Ishapore 1A, and my partner Slav had the chance to go there and actually visit their factory and install most of our components onto one of their Ishapore 1As off of their assembly line. And quite a very, very interesting experience to say the least. But before that event, we were able to get a hold of an Inglis and also a hold of an Ishapore 1A. There's only been about, as far as we know and can find, there's only been one event of an importation of Ishapore 1As into the U.S., and it was 250 of a quantity. And they have no interest, apparently. We've actually attempted to engage them. They seem to have no interest in selling Ishapore 1As outside of India, and apparently they still love the high power pistol that they have made since the 70s. And they are, to their credit, they are fantastic pistols. It appears that Dieudonné Save was conscious of this, possibly this hammer bite issue, because it looks like he went to some design effort here to give the hand more place to go under the beaver tail. And so that would have been protection from hammer bite, and of course a ring hammer would be as well. One last thing, we want to check the time on our video recording. The next thing here on the Wikipedia, now this is interesting to us, another flaw is that the original small safety is very hard to release or engage. This is because when cocked, the shaft, the safety turns on, is under hammer spring pressure. Later versions went to a larger safety to address this issue. We take some exception in the notion that that was a design flaw. If you would take a look back at that Ishapore 1A again, and that particular pistol, you can see that little safety, and it is very small. And it is designed like it was intended to be very, very stealthy, like you hardly would know it is there almost under any circumstances. And it was. This was very purposely designed in the beginning for military. And that was where FN envisioned this handgun going, which it did. They seemed to have a bead on the market for where they were going with this new pistol, this new high power, back in the 30s, and their target market was, and at that time, and then for the foreseeable future, during that time, it was very military-driven contract work that they were expecting to do with this handgun. Militaries traditionally utilize their handguns in Condition 3, except for that 1 or 2 times a year when they go to the firing range and qualify with their sidearm. Most sidearms in most militaries all around the world then and now, sidearms are never loaded. Maybe if you're in a very hot zone and you're at a different state of readiness than the rest of the time, possibly then that's different. But generally speaking, the safety was there more than likely, probably just because it was required by the original French contract. Not that it shouldn't have been there. Don't get me wrong there. But to say that this was a design flaw, it was actually perfect for a Condition 3 application, where occasionally someone may need to be cocked and locked with a round in the chamber in a hot zone, per se, but that would be in terms of a percentage of the time of this firearm being carried and handled, that would be understandably a low percentage of the time, most of the time. So they were building a Condition 3 application handgun, and that safety for that purpose was perfect. Now, as the high power evolved and started to be imported by Browning into the United States for civilian sales, and understanding that the civilian mindset was moving much more towards readiness even then, and the issue of cocked and locked came in at that point. But there's one thing that has always made me smile, and that is this notion or this idea about the 1911 or about the high power, that John Browning invented these pistols or designed these pistols to be used cocked and locked. And that maybe, but that doesn't appear to be like the very first consideration. The very first consideration was a Condition 3 application. And the safety, at least of the high power, who in the European market is a much more committed Condition 3 regimen, frankly. This would be a very seldom used device, that being the manual safety. So function of that device and the ergonomics of it and the speed at which you can deholster and deactivate the safety and fire, this was just not the profile of what this handgun was originally developed for. So we just take a little bit of exception with the notion that small original safety was a design flaw. At the time, it appears to us, for all intents and purposes, it was the perfect design. So anyway, that's going to end this session. We're going to get back to the section called military service in our next session. Thanks a lot. Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions.